You are listening to the Taps and Teas Show, weekly conversations for people passionate about marketing, golf, and craft beer. Marty is the co-founder of Bad Rhino, an award-winning digital marketing agency helping golf and craft beer brands get real results in social media marketing. Here is your host, Marty McDonald.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Taps and Teas. And I know I've been teasing this for a while that we're going to get back to golf and beer after all the marketing stuff and with this whole pandemic. And we're finally starting to release all these craft beer as well as golf interviews. And it's going to be a little bit more lighthearted than talking about the hardcore marketing pieces that we were talking about over the past few months. And it's going to be fun. And I'm looking forward to getting back to the essence of this podcast finally. And today I have a great guest, really unique in my mind, because I see him in a way, just in the brief conversations that we've had, like kind of like a little bit of a pioneer in digital, which is interesting in the golf world. Like he doesn't have 10 years experience within there. He's got, a little bit more than that. And it's really interesting to hear as he laughs about that, a little bit interesting to hear his path and how he got there. But my guest today is Peter Sanders. He has a company called Shot by Shot, and he jumped out of the insurance industry to kind of move into the golf world and develop Shot by Shot way back in 1989. So when I said a few more years than 10, that's where we're talking to here. And the interesting part about it and what I loved about it was when I took a look at what the product was and what it does, I was like, okay, this is pretty cool because of a few things. And it's really analytical. You have a lot of neat little things there, but he's worked for a while. He's been in Golf Digest. He's worked with PGA Tour professionals. He's done a whole host of things I'll let him elaborate on. But without further ado, I will let Peter introduce himself now. So Peter, I heard you chuckle in there, so I know you're there.
Yeah, Marty, that's very nice. Thank you for that introduction. I'm an avid golfer like you. And when I was fortunate enough to finally join a country club, which I couldn't do until my job, and I knew I was going to be somewhere for a while. You don't lay out a pretty good number to join a club, and then the company goes, we're moving you. So I landed in with my reinsurance company in Greenwich, and I was lucky enough to get into a very nice golf club there. And I decided that I wanted to learn to play the game, and I wanted to become competitive. So I started keeping all the stats that you read about in Golf Digest. Did you hit the fairway? Did you hit the green? How many putts, up and downs? But I found it useless and misleading. And there was no comparative data other than the tour. And it was a bit depressing to find out that I needed to hit 8 or 9 more greens in regulation per round. And I had no idea how to do that. So I leaned on the computer skills that I had, computer modeling skills that I had been exposed to in the insurance business, where I created models. I didn't touch the keys. I didn't do that, but I would say to someone that was touching the keys, let's create this algorithm and let's put in these variables and let's run it. And then we'd do it. And then I'd say, well, now let's change it, this and that. And it worked really well. And so I became very, very familiar with creating computer models and analyzing things. And I said to myself, shoot, I could do this for golf. I could create a computer model of how the game is played at scratch or par, and then have people compare each of their shots, the starting value and the ending value, against my model with the scratch player, and calculate whether they're gaining or losing shots on each one. And it's now, I called it strokes lost and saved, and it's now called strokes gained. So it's been a wonderful journey. I've been able to play golf all over the world. I've made so many good friends in the golf business. And, here I am with shotbyshot.com.
That's great. I think one of the interesting parts to me was talking about it from that standpoint where you had that idea and that concept in, 1989, taking insurance background and not knowing specifically what you did there, but taking all those analytical skills and applying it to, what became today, and I think that's way ahead of, in my mind, what the golf industry always has. Like, that was very forward thinking back then, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And
I remember Carol Mann. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt,
No.
I remember Carol Mann, a Hall of Famer whom I met, and she helped me get some players in the LPGA world to use my new revolutionary program. And she said to me over dinner one night, Peter, what you're doing is fabulous, but it's so far ahead of your time. You're going to have to be really tough-skinned and really hang in there until the golf world can catch up with that. Mm-hmm. And she was right.
Yeah, I have the same feeling, just even jumping into the golf world in like 2011, 2012, and, working with golf professionals with marketing and some other pieces, and how backwards like the idea of technology in golf was, talking about the advent of cell phones, smartphones particularly, and, what the rules are and all that. And I'm like, well, things are going to have to change. And I had like a couple of conversations, and I was like, well, no one's really looking to move that direction. And I'm like, well, we're going to have to, if you're going to grow the game, if you're going to do these things, because this is becoming a piece of, it's like an attachment to most people, and especially younger generations. So you're going to have to like balance it out. And I've seen so many changes in the past, 6, 7, 8 years, especially in the last 2 or 3, that, it's embracing some of those things. I just remember US Open at Marion, and we had to like check our cell phones, right? And couldn't bring a cell phone onto the course. And there's part of me that loves that, right? Part of me that loves that you're in the moment, as a player or as a patron when you're going to watch an event, and you're not distracting players. But then I'm also like, this is going to turn off a lot of younger kids and younger people, because they're used to having it now, and Marion, that was in 2013. So 7 years ago. I'm like, it's got to change. And then slowly but surely over the next few years, it started to change pretty quickly. And you see a lot of different things on the course. And you're right. She said the right thing to you. That's way ahead of your time. So what were the biggest challenges at the beginning to get people to use it? I mean, obviously the data and everything is, in my opinion, pretty self-explanatory, but let's rewind time a little bit. What was the probably biggest frustration you had of trying to get this going?
Yeah. Before I answer that, I'll tell you a quick story that back up your story about cell phones. I got, through hook or by crook, I got to meet with Tiger's agent, and he really, really wanted what I had, and he wanted me to meet with Tiger at the U.S. Open at Winged Foot, because that's, I'm in Connecticut, that's New York. So he got me passes for Winged Foot, and he said, when you get in, call me on my cell phone.
Right.
So I drive down, I go and park probably 1.5 miles away from the the actual entrance to the course. And then I walk all the way to the security, and they tell me I can't take my cell phone. So I have to walk all the way back to the car, put it in the car, and then go in. And so I'm frantic because we were supposed to meet for lunch. And I can see, I can't get within 30 yards of the clubhouse with the passes that he gave me. And I can see Steinberg and Tiger having lunch on the patio on the outside of the back of the clubhouse. And I'm just part of a crowd. I started jumping up and down and waving my arms and going, Mark, Tiger. And finally, somebody pointed to him and pointed to me, and they had me come in, and we had about 5 minutes left with Tiger. He had to go and warm up. And then Mark Steinberg and I spent some time, but it was really frustrating. And developing my app, I had to get special dispensation from my board and golf committee to use a phone on the golf course when I was testing it. And, so anyway, but so the biggest frustration was the myopia of the big people in the golf business, that they are stuck on the old stats, and especially the instructors, and I, I remember having one of them. I went through it with him, and he said, "There's no way anybody's going to do this. This is stupid." And I said, "Gee, that's not very nice." And that was the end of the meeting. So I ran into that. That was a brick wall. And a couple of pros heard me speak and really embraced it. And one's Tom Patry, who I have a lot of time for, because he got me LPGA players. He took me to the PGA show and introduced me to all his friends that were, prominent instructors or young up and coming instructors. So I built and then Henry Brunson in Canada, who heard me speak at one of Patry's Cracker Barrel events, around the PGA show. And he invited me to Canada, and he started using it. He specialized in juniors, and he was the head of the Canadian national team, and he created all the feeder systems for the Canadian provinces that would then feed players to the national level. And once he embraced it, I got, oh my God, Canadians, coming over the transoms, instructors using shop like that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I envision you at Wingfoot jumping up and down. Had to be a scene. I mean, nowadays I don't even know what they would do with you. Because what was that, 2002, or is that earlier than that?
I'm bad at names and dates, but
that's fine.
It was a while ago. It was who was it? One.
It's okay. We'll look it up later, but I couldn't remember which day. I was just thinking about Wingfoot. I was watching something this morning, and it was about Phil Mickelson. And then obviously he's on the playing his first senior tour event, which he lit it up yesterday. But it was funny because I was just thinking about, like, okay, I'm envisioning Peter jumping up and down, waving his arms at, Steinberg and the biggest golfer on the planet now and then, right? Like, man, like he didn't get arrested. But really. No, it's amusing. In the first conversation we had a couple of weeks ago, I can relate to that. Like, I got called on by just putting feelers out there into the golf world because I was so interested, and I saw golfing, daily fee courses and even country clubs, like, just mismanaging their digital media. So I was like, I can help you guys, and I know the golf world enough that, I can help you at least stop the bleeding, and what you're doing just seems absurd. And, it was like, I wouldn't say I was laughed out of the room, but it was pretty close, where I was just trying to be helpful. I wasn't necessarily trying to gain their business. I was like, you realize, like, there's better ways to do this digital stuff than what you're doing. And it can help you. It can bring people that may be intimidated to come play golf for the first time. And you can help explain it just by using some things on the internet to, bring that out. Because, even today I talk to people that are like, yeah, I always wanted to get into playing golf. And I'm like, just go out, and they're like, well, I'm worried about slowing down somebody's play. And I'm like, look, most people, unless they're just not a nice person, they're going to understand that. Just talk to them. Be like, hey, it's one of my first times out. But the digital piece, I always thought would be a good bridge to that. And it's really not until, like we said, recently. So your struggles must have been immense. So, like, let's fast forward just a little bit, and, cell phones are now out there, and then you have more. Has it been easier in the past, 5-6 years for you to kind of grow shot by shot a little bit, where people even more embracing? I mean, you have about 30,000 individual subscribers and 200 group leaders. And so you have a good, footprint, but, how's that been over the last few years for you?
Yeah, better. The business has grown. It's only my inability to get it out there. I've bootstrapped this entire thing with my own money and my sweet wife who put up with all this. So it's I can't pay for advertising, those kinds of things, but word of mouth has done pretty well, and my response to Google search and the articles that I write has fueled the random visitors, is what I call the golfers, the regular golfers that sign up online for it. And so it grows and grows.
Yeah, well, that's good.
I'm looking for your help. I'm looking for your help to put a big bounce in that.
Well, we'll talk about that later. But I think the bootstrap concept is how I started every business that I've been involved in, and you learn a lot more, in my opinion. And sometimes it's a struggle. Don't get me wrong. Like, yeah, I would love to have unlimited capital to go do whatever, but you do learn, and you learn sometimes not at the pace you want. You want it to be faster, but the things that you learn within there usually make it a much steadier, much rock solid type product, whether it's digital or physical. And I think that's really cool that you can get it by word of mouth to grow that much. I think that's an amazing thing. And I've been all over the internet searching for golf products, people, everything. And I didn't learn of yours until just a few weeks ago. And it was one of the more unique things I saw. And I'm like, this is interesting. Like, this is neat to me. And I think a lot more people need to know about it, which is why we're talking.
Hey, if you're enjoying what you're hearing on the show and want more, head on over to tapsandtees.info and get our free report with game-changing tips and strategies straight to your inbox. Just enter your info and stop being stuck with no marketing plan.
Explain to everybody what Shot by Shot does. Like, I go to shotbystshot.com. What do I do as a golfer?
Well, you learn a simple data recording system of the data that we ask for, and of all the newcomers in the strokes gain business, because of my 30 years of experience, we've honed it down. We're less than 50% of most of the new, that they have to get every shot, every distance, and nobody really wants to do that. So we've dramatically reduced the amount of work on the part of the players, and we have easy apps to do it. So a subscriber, well, first of all, there's a free trial, so anyone can go on the website, sign up for the free trial, enter and analyze a round, so they see exactly what they're going to get for what they do and for what it costs. And then they start entering their data and getting the analysis, and we call it a complete strokes gained analysis of the game. They get back a relative handicap for each facet of the game as compared to their target handicap group. So, if you're a low handicap, you pick the 0 to 2 or the +1 to +3 target, and that's what you get compared to. If you're an average golfer, you pick the 25 to 29 handicap group, and you will go from there. And so the system will, based on the strokes gained analysis, assign you a number one improvement priority. In other words, in what part of the game are you losing the most strokes on average per round to that of your target, and why? Because of our 399,000 rounds we have of our unique data, we can show people exactly what it is. If it's the short game, is it you're not hitting it close enough, or you're making too many mistakes, missing greens? And same with putting and driving and whatever it may be. So, and when you improve and you reach your target, the system says congratulations, and you select a lower target. And we've had people, I've had people that started as regular mid-20 handicaps who've gotten down to low single digits, and as I did.
Yeah. No, I think that's interesting. You just answered my follow-up question there, is like, when people see improvement, what happens? Obviously, you select another one, but then also some real good information there where, you take a high handicapper, and, I've played with so many people over the years, and those little things, like, you're not going to bring that up to them. to that person. I mean, I am by no means somebody that should be instructing anybody on their golf game, but you see little things and it's just like, oh, and it's like, you hear them say like, oh, I always do this. And I would assume, like shot by shot from the analytical approach would help somebody eliminate those tiny little mistakes and know a little bit better about their game when they're 80 yards out or 150 yards out, that sort of stuff, that it doesn't make it seem wishy-washy, like, oh, I just need to hit the perfect shot here in their head without knowing like, wow, if I just hit with whatever club, I know I have a better statistical way of getting it where I need it to go. Is that like a good, like, just synopsis of what you were saying there?
Yeah, it's perfect. The game, while we're out there playing it, is an emotional roller coaster, and it's very hard to say, oh, what am I doing well? What am I not doing well? I even find that with my tour players. They'll say, oh, I hit the ball great. And I'm a terrible putter. And I'll do an analysis of the, most recent tournaments, and I'll go, no, you're a pretty good putter. You're making too many mistakes off the tee. And see, they don't see that because the PGA Tour does not include errors in their stats and their 360 stats of every player every week. There's only one negative stat, and that's 3-putt avoidance, and there's 7 of those. But anyway, so it's people have to have a way of unemotionally recording easily as they go around what's happening. And then they can get it back and go, I didn't know I was doing that. I didn't know I was, leaving every second bunker shot in the bunker.
Right. Huh. That's interesting. I always relate it back to like playing experiences whenever I talk to somebody. I played with somebody it was probably about 6 years ago, and I'm thinking about it because I knew the course I was playing on. And this gentleman just paired up, didn't meet him, never met him before, and we were playing early in the morning, and off of every tee, he was hitting a 5-iron just about. And he would place it right on the fairway. And sometimes he'd be a little further up based on the distance, and other times he'd just be on the edge of the fairway. But from there in, he would play lights out. Like, he's just like, I can't, get the driver, like, or even a wood off the tee very well. And he's like, this is how I play. And I mean, I think he shot like a 74. I think he was 2 over, 72. and he had, it was amazing to me because I watched so many people play, and I've played so long, and sometimes it shows and sometimes it doesn't. And there's like so many different approaches to it. And I would just think like having this in your back pocket and having the analytics behind it and understanding what your game is doing and where you are missing would just be a huge benefit to anybody. And I think, putting those things down and understanding, just like this gentleman was playing just a 5-iron off the tee, and he knew where you would place the ball. And he literally placed the ball every way into the fairway, then on the green, and, he missed 2 putts or he would have been just par for the day. And I just remember that round like so vividly. It just sticks there. And I played with some guys in their mid 80s, and I've watched them go around, and they just knew what they could do. And I think sometimes that's missing because you like the flash of the game where, look, if you're basing everything off of PGA pros, you're going to be sadly disappointed. Yeah. No one's going to go out and hit the ball 330, on a regular basis. Those guys are a lot different, and the way they play and practice are much different. And, golf to me is a very personal game, and you're in your own head. Like you said, it's an emotional roller coaster when you're out there. But every once in a while, if you shot by shot, be able to pull out data in your mind and be able to make that, and you'll feel better. And then it just builds, you're not going to make every shot. It's not going to help you with your swing mechanics. But if you understand some of those things, you'll have a much more enjoyable time out there.
Well, if you know your strengths as well as your major weaknesses, you can play to your strengths. Like that gentleman played to his 5-iron off the tee, and you can address with your pro or lessons or reading magazines, whatever your weakness is, and try to not to play to it. Say, I want to avoid that type of shot, or or as he did, he avoided the driver.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he would say every time he would hit something, it's like every once in a while, he's like, I hit a good shot. He's like, most of the time it would just put me in trouble. And then he's like, I just hated playing, and then he's like, it would throw me off. And he's like, this is how I play right now. And I was like impressed because it was interesting.
Yeah.
Now that moving into, I'm not the kid anymore that could go up and just, swing away and power something out there. And then now that when I play with, younger guys, and then I watch them do the same thing, and I'm like, oh man, I'm the older guys that are now hitting par or birdie and, taking a couple bucks off these guys. And it's kind of like, whoa, the roles are reversed, but you learn your game and it's fun. And I think that's the whole point of golf, is you learn a little bit about yourself along the way. So let's just shift a little bit here and just talk about golf in general. Like, when did you start playing? Like, how did, how did you get into golf?
My dad thought he should take up golf because it would be good for his business relationships. So he dragged me out. I was 7 years old, and I had a cut-off driver, a cut-off 5-iron, and a cut-off putter. And we played 9 holes at a public golf course in Washington, D.C. called Haynes Point. And the little 9-hole course that we played had 9 greens, no sand traps, no trees, no nothing. You just played 4 out and 5 back. And we did that every Saturday afternoon until I got into playing sports that other than golf. And then I dumped Dad. And I said, no, I'm not doing that with you anymore, because I was playing basketball and football and all that. But I had a game. And so when I went away to college and I took his clubs with me because he wasn't playing anymore, one of my roommates played golf on the UVA golf team. And when spring training came around for him to warm up, he got access to the private club in Charlottesville. Oh, nice. And he would take me and a couple of our fraternity brothers, and we'd play a $5 Nassau then, back in, the early 70s, late 60s. And he taught me a little bit about my grip and this and that. And I just said, well, that's it. Golf's going to become a part of what I do.
That's awesome. And then just keep going and turns it into a business. That's awesome. What's your favorite golf memory?
It has to be breaking 80 at first time playing Pebble Beach in a business event that I was invited to play in. And I didn't have a handicap. I played, but I didn't have a handicap, didn't belong to a club, all that. And was just had a great day on an unbelievable golf course. And I shot 79, and I've got the scorecard, and it's mounted on my wall.
That's awesome. And then, turning it around, like your favorite professional golfer of all time, like who was the person that you had to follow?
Tom Watson.
There you go.
As it turns out, he and I are the same age. And when I was taking the game up seriously, I bought his book, Getting Up and Down, with Tom Watson, and I read and reread and practiced. And he would his attitude, his spirit, he was a great competitor, and all those wins at the British Open and Pebble Beach, and I wanted to be like Tom Watson.
There you go. I think, Tom Watson's one of those, gets mentioned, but I also think too, at the same time, gets like lost in the shuffle of how great his career was. It's just when you really look back and you look at all, the wins, and then, as PGA Player of the Year, I think like 4 or 5 times, right in the, I guess, late 70s, early 80s. And then you just look through and you're like, whoa, and he had a long career too. I think it's got 30. Yeah. I don't know if it's 40. I think it's just as a high 30 wins on tour. Like, it's like one of the great players of all time, but it does get lost in the shuffle every once in a while. I think when they mention people, That's a great answer. Is there like a specific shot he made that you remember that's just like, oh, it's just burned in your brain?
Sure. It was the up and down on the 17th hole at Pebble Beach to win the Open.
Yep. No, I know. I figured you were going to say that.
He said he was in the high kind of grass, downhill to a close cut pin. And evidently he said to his caddy, I'm going to make this.
Mm-hmm.
He did.
Yeah. And that was Jack was on the tee, I think. Or was he playing with Tom?
Yeah. I don't think he was playing with him, but Tom needed it.
He needed it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They recall that I just finished, was it Arnie and Jack, the book, and they mentioned that specifically, that shot. And I can't remember whether he was playing with them or he was on the tee, but he just knew it was done then at Pebble. So yeah, it's interesting, like how many of those things are burned, like just in your brain when you remember it, because just the pressure and like much like shot by shot is like, the percentages. And when those guys can do that and they just know like, all right, I have this shot and I just need to land it in the right spot. And, that's what everyone strives to, and they're masters at it. So what's new in golf that you like right now that's going on in the game?
Well, over the last several years, I was fortunate enough to be a green chairman at my club, so for 6 years, and saw the introduction of rollers for the greens. So this is a while ago, but I became very good friends with the superintendent, and we traveled and played golf together all over the place. But there's a lot of new things with agronomy, that the courses just get better and better, and the greens better and better. So that's exciting, and I don't know how far they can go with that. The new strains of grasses and all that. But then you go to technology is moving very fast, and new things coming on. I can't keep up with the new drivers, mainly because I can't afford to get a new one every year.
They're ridiculous.
But it is ridiculous. I have my friends that I play with, and they look at my driver. I've got the original Epic, Callaway, and they go, "God, that's an antique."
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm playing right now. My driver and my 3-wood are the original Big Bertha, so they're like 20 years old.
Oh, get out! Oh, so I had that.
I took them back out because I was having problems, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to try this, and I've been using them now for a year and a half. I'm going to go get fitted for a new driver at the end of a week or so. But
that's awesome.
I know, but yeah. I was playing a couple weeks ago, and the guy looked at my bag. He was like, "Really?" And I'm like, so he hits a drive. I hit my drive, and I'm 5 yards behind him. And he's using brand new. I'm like, I don't know, dude. Like, I guess these work. And he just looked at me. He wasn't really happy with my answer, because then I beat him the rest of the way.
Yeah.
Which was kind of fun to me, but I was just like, I don't know, man. I'm like, it just feels comfortable to me. So I'm like, I'll just keep using it. So, but I can't keep up with all that stuff.
It's hard. And I admit that if you and I stood on the first tee together and I looked in your bag and I saw the Big Bertha, which I had that I would be wondering about your game.
He was. And
yeah,
it's just interesting. I mean, to me, it's like
good for you.
And then I played with a guy that was using persimmon woods the other day, last Thursday, the last time I was playing. And I was like, oh, I love that sound, because I heard it and I turned around and he was like, oh, and I'm like, what's up with that? He's like, I like to play with it every once in a while. And so we were just talking about it, because that's what I learned on. And, when I was a kid, and even my grandfather used to say, he's like, if you learn to hit these, he's like, then we'll see what happens. And I learned to hit those, and he was like, all right, and we just kind of graduated from there. But last question here, it's a two-parter. So what's your favorite course that you've ever played? And then what's one course that you want to play that you haven't?
Well, I've been lucky in my ability to play courses, but my favorites are colored by the experiences that I've had and the people with whom I've played. But Pine Valley is my favorite course. I had the great pleasure of playing in an event there for 12 years and played against the who's who in amateur golf. But and it's a wonderful, wonderful risk reward course. Every shot gives you a bailout, which then makes the next one harder, or a high risk shot, which then makes the next one easier. And it's just a wonderful place.
Awesome. And then
the one that I
list?
The one that I haven't played. Oh, Augusta.
Fair enough.
Who doesn't? Who
I know.
Who
Yeah.
that? I probably will never. I've had some near misses where I got a last minute invitation and couldn't go, but I've been to the event twice, and I said to myself, and I had a great experience, and wouldn't trade it for the world. But I said, I'm not going back unless I'm playing.
I'll have to share that story. I have a friend of a friend that has an interesting story about the time he got to play there, but we don't have time for that. But Peter, I really enjoyed speaking with you, and I look forward to speaking with you more. And for everybody out there, it's shotbyshot.com. Take a look at it. It's really interesting, and it's some fun stuff for your game. And I think one of the unique things, as Peter said earlier, is it can help you improve, and it's not gimmicky in any way. You just have to be honest with yourself and where you're at, and you start tracking the information, and it's an easy way to do it. So get out there and check it out. And Peter, anything else to add?
I just want to thank you, Marty. This is a pleasure, and talk to you anytime.
Sounds like a plan. Well, everybody, I appreciate it. A couple more episodes coming out in the next few weeks. We'll be more on the golf topic than beer for a little bit, because we had some crazy stuff going on in the world, but we have some interesting people coming up, and I look forward to speaking or having you hear everything. And if you have any questions, just reach out. And if you have the opportunity, please go check out shotbyshot.com. Peter, thank you.
Thank you, Marty.
This is the podcastfactory.com.